I've done podcasts on the power of light before, but it is such an important part of my life. I mean, I've moved countries basically because of the quality of the light, and I really wanted to refocus on it today. At one of the darkest times of the year, in this week's Zestology podcast, we are venturing into the illuminating world of light therapy. My guest is Dr. Brandon Crawford, a leading expert in this fascinating field. And this is, of course, Zestology, the podcast all about energy, vitality and motivation. I'm Tony Whiten. Thank you for listening. Getting back on track after the festive season, and light is such an important part of it. Look, if you've been following me for a while, you know I now live in Portugal. It's been quite a journey moving from the UK to Portugal, but here we are. And a big part of it is the fact that here I can get really good quality light. But it doesn't matter where you are. You can still delve into how light, far beyond its basic function, plays a critical role in our health and well-being wherever you are. You can get it. You get those correct wavelengths of light to positively impact your brain function, hormonal balance, and overall health. And there's quite a few gadgets that he comes up with as well, and a nice bit of health tech too. He's into the science too, Dr. Crawford, which I really like. He breaks down those complex scientific concepts into digestible insights. So here is Dr. Brandon Crawford on Zestology. Brandon, we're on. How are you?
Doing well. How about yourself?
Really good, thanks. Yeah. Oh, I've been looking forward to this because I logically sort of know why light is so important for me and light therapy works so well. And yet I find it hard to actually make the connections in my brain as to why. You know, for example, I now live in Portugal, very lucky, and I've been down on the beach this morning. I've been getting good quality light. I even took my shirt off. And I know it's good for me, but I still need you to remind me why, basically.
Absolutely. You know, my happy place is Costa Rica. I took about a 3-month-long sabbatical, and we lived in Costa Rica for a bit. We sold everything here. I was running a practice. It was really high volume. I got really stressed out. And my wife and I said, you know what are we doing? We're killing ourselves, and this is just ridiculous. And I had developed several issues. I could barely wake up in the morning. My TSH on labs was 25. So it's my thyroid stimulating hormone. It was way too high. And I did everything I knew possible. I did all the supplementation. I was even trying some medication. I literally did everything. And my wife and I said, you know what, screw this. We're selling everything. We're moving to Costa Rica.
Wow.
And a big reason for that was because we understood, number one, the importance of stress physiology and how that impacts brain health and just overall physiology. But number two, we understand the importance about getting optimal light exposure. And so you took your shirt off. We literally ran around naked in the jungle and on the beach for like 3 months. Now, another precipitating factor was that one of my doctors was suggesting they test me for cancer. They really suspected I had thyroid cancer. And that's the point that I said, you know what, we're not pursuing that. We're going to do what we know to do for optimal health. And through that time period, I didn't take any medication. I didn't take any supplementation. I just got properly illuminated. I literally just got properly illuminated, de-stressed. When I came back, everything was normal. I felt fantastic. My labs were normal. And here's the thing. When you look at the research, when you talk to, someone in science or someone that thinks they know, what they know about light therapy, it's always a discussion about ATP. And that's important. It is about ATP. Light does stimulate cellular energy, which is ATP, and that allows the cell to do what it needs to do better. But it's so much more than that. We don't understand, even in the literature, we're still trying to figure out some of these parameters. But light is fully integrated, not just in our cell, but in our systems, right? When we take a systems biology approach, we understand that light is coming into our eyes, and it's integrating in an area of the brain called the suprachiasmatic nucleus, but light is also coming in from our body, right? So our body is just this big receptor for light, and that is also going up into our brain as a form of stimulus. And that's also being integrated in the suprachiasmatic nucleus. And that's reverberating back down into our body and talking to all of these different systems, all of our organs, all of our skeletal muscles. Our skeletal muscles actually respond to light. When the sun rises, we have clock genes in our muscles that tell our muscles to activate, and we have a better gait pattern. We have more strength. We have more endurance. And then as the sun goes down, those clock genes say, hey, it's time to start to downregulate. It's time to sleep. So everything in our body is regulated with light. And that means it can also be dysregulated with light. So if we're sitting under fluorescent lights all day, our clock genes, our body does not understand what's going on. It's going, wait, well, am I supposed to be like, oh, is this morning time? What is this, right? So it's very confusing to our biology if we're doing that to ourselves. We have to be properly illuminated. That is so foundational to our health.
Yeah. And I'm glad we're recording this in winter, actually. Obviously, I'm very lucky to be here in Portugal, and that's a lifestyle choice that we've made. But the majority of the people listening to this podcast in the Northern Hemisphere, and it's pretty dark and gloomy at the moment. I've got a lot of podcast listeners in America and England. And it's just hard, isn't it, to get enough quality light to do that sort of illumination process that you were talking about there when it's the middle of winter and the hours of daylight are so short. And when the sun does poke his head out, it's very, very pathetically weak.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And, fortunately, we have technology now. I personally have an LED panel in my bedroom. My wife is begging me to get it out of the bedroom. So we're building like a whole biohacking space that we're going to put all that stuff in.
So when you say an LED panel, are you talking about red light or infrared light?
So near infrared, red, there's some shades of yellow in there, depending on, the time of day that I use it. There's even just a little bit of blue in there. So if I'm using it early in the day, I want that really bright, high intense red with a little bit of blue. We need a little bit of blue wavelength early in the day to help wake us up. If I'm using it, afternoon, later in the day, I'm turning the red light intensity down a little bit. I'm turning the near infrared up, which is invisible to the naked eye. I'm turning the blue light off. So it kind of depends on the timing of the day that I use it. But I just took a trip. We were skiing, so we were in Utah. Obviously, we were covered up, right? So didn't get a whole lot of light exposure. And I was starting to feel real fuzzy headed, just not feeling great. Could have had something to do that I snowboarded for 8 days straight with my 13-year-old son, and he killed me. The first thing I did when I came back, and we got back late at night, I laid under that LED panel, and I had it on the near infrared, so it was invisible. Any type of really intense light exposure at nighttime can then alter circadian rhythm. So I don't want that real intense bright light. And then woke up early in the morning and did that intense bright red light with a little bit of blue. I also have, the lasers that we use in the office. And so I was actually lasering my brain before we started to talk. So I use it to give my brain a little boost.
Wow.
So there's all types of technology available out there, depending on, your finances and your resources and everything that you can use in those dark, gloomy spaces.
Yeah. And you're right. I mean, the first thing to point out is the sun's out there, and that's amazing. Yes. But then beyond that, some of these other things are pretty amazing as well, which are not free. So how long would you be using these various devices for? I'm quite interested. I'm trying to think what lights we've got here. We've got an infrared face mask, which my wife uses religiously, and I occasionally remember to use. And because we've just moved from the UK to Portugal, we've got sort of pocket red light and infrared light. We've got a big Juve as well back in the UK. And then I've got a brilliant red light device, not infrared light, but goes up the nose for the sinuses, which actually I think is fantastic. It is so good. And I know I should be on the marketing board for this little device because I know I've sold loads to other people and I've mentioned it to them as well. So what's your usage like of these various devices?
Yeah. So the LED panel, it's really, I feel whenever I'm good, right? So it's almost like I'm a battery being charged up. Now, if you're not familiar with that feeling, I tell people, 10 minutes on your front side, flip over 10 minutes on your back side. And all that also depends on the intensity of the light and everything as well. But then also my IP also talks about the biphasic dose response curve, and how, if you're sick, you need more exposure, or, there's various types of factors to consider, just like with nutrients and everything else. You mentioned the nasal application. I love that as well. We have a type of device we attach to our lasers and go up the nose. There's a plexus of blood vessels. I believe it's called Clivox plexus, that sits within the cavities through there. And this is actually a form of blood illumination whenever you're shining that laser or that LED up your nose. And what's going on is you're actually irradiating the blood flow through that plexus, and that's going straight up into the prefrontal cortex, which is a very, very important part of the brain. It's the newest, most executive part of the brain. And so you're enriching this blood, you're giving it more energy, you're increasing oxygenation, and that's going straight up, and you're getting those brilliant secondary and tertiary effects from that light exposure into your brain. It's a fantastic type of stimulus. I love it. But then also that's a direct route into the midbrain part of the brainstem. And so we'll use that for various ways in rehab. But from a health perspective, that's going to help with things like dopamine, things like your postural reactions, your reaction speed, things like that. So there's so many different things, but so many different use categories there, so many different use cases rather. As far as timing goes, man, it really just kind of depends on what you're trying to achieve and power levels and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Interrupting this podcast for one moment to remind you that it is brought to you by my friends at Bioptimizers. I am so pleased to partner with them again, refocusing in January after the madness of the holiday season, which seemed to go on for absolutely months. And as well as focusing on diet, stress and sleep, I'm focusing on supplements as well. And I've been taking their magnesium a lot as things come to an end because, well, it helps you fall asleep, stay asleep and wake up refreshed. It doesn't help you go to bed on time. But if you can do that bit, it will help you stay asleep. At least it really does for me as well. It is the only full spectrum magnesium supplement with 7 unique forms of magnesium that your body can actually use and absorb. I exclusively recommend Magnesium Breakthrough. And, if you're struggling to return to your health routine in 2024, I have a lesson to share, and that is focus on the big stuff. Prioritize healthy eating, exercise, stress reduction, and above all, really good quality sleep. And that involves taking a good supplement like Magnesium Breakthrough and then going to bed on time. I can't help you with the second bit, but I can help you with the Magnesium Breakthrough. If you're interested in taking that supplement that I have been talking about for a long time on this podcast, you can head over to bioptimizers.com/Zestology. That is bioptimizers.com/Zestology and use the code Zestology10. So it's Zestology10 for 10% off. This podcast is also brought to you by my online program, the Healthy AF Method, the mindset method that transforms your health. And it's been brilliant. It's been so exciting doing this in 2024 because we've got an online community and I speak to a lot of people individually as well because it's on WhatsApp, so people can just slide into my DMs if they've got a question. And it's just been so brilliant refocusing on all of this stuff at the start of 2024. It is the chance to heal, optimize, and transform your health with NLP and energy psychology. This is my proven signature health mindset program, and I would love you to come and join me and embark on a transformation in 2024. Head to TonyWrighton.com/healthy if you're interested in taking part. I'd absolutely love to welcome you. And again, if you use the code Zestology10, you can get 10% off just by being a listener to Zestology. Just to let you know what we work on in this transformative program, it is all about using NLP to transform your health and your life by embarking on a health transformation, helping your healing and living the healthy AF lifestyle. And I think also I would say elevating our health IQ. It's really, really important that, it's emotionally and mentally what's going on when you think about health affects so much what's going on physically. And if you can start to set and achieve health milestones by using this stuff, that is really satisfying. So it's TonyWrighton.com/healthy. Use the code Zestology10 for 10% off that, 10% off the magnesium breakthrough as well. And I'd love you to come and join us in January. This is the time when we all reset and refocus, and I'd love to be a part of that with you. That's it. Back to the show. I mean, I'm fascinated by the fact you were just firing up your brain there before this podcast. Mm-hmm. You literally used a device. What were you using for that then? Am I right in saying do you make the devices then?
So I'm actually developing a whole new line of lasers right now. So I will be the manufacturer of that company. That company is called 558 Innovations. For now, this laser is the one that we've been using, the one that I've been promoting, using clinically for several years now. So I was just actually using a brainwave setting. So it's called a beta wave. And I was using that on various parts of my cortex that I know are a little weaker based on my brain scans.
Wow. Wow. That's amazing. What's the device? What is the device?
So this is a neurosolution device. So if you go to neurosolution.com, that's where you can see these. But these are the lasers we've been using clinically for many years now. I've developed my own settings that are in here. Like I was saying, the brainwave settings, those are, based on your brainwave patterns. And I've got some pilot studies done that show that we do actually entrain a certain brainwave whenever we use that. So quite exciting stuff, just to be honest.
That's really cool. Wow. Yeah. I mean, it's a fun area to be in as well, because there's just so many applications.
Absolutely.
And then you were talking about in the evening, you don't want too much sort of stimulation in the evening, because obviously you don't want bright light in the evening. What sort of light would you say is okay in the evening, and what is too much? Is the red light too much, but the near infrared light, is that okay?
So it's about the intensity of the light. Now, you don't want a lot of blue light, a lot of blue and white light. And that's really a lot of the type of light that's coming off of screens. So we don't want a lot of screen use. But ultimately, what I tell people is, if you can download an app, it's called Light Meter. And what that'll do is that'll measure the light intensity of your environment. And you want to keep your light intensity below 30 lux. And so light intensity is measured in lux. That's LUX. And that's even true if you're doing some type of light therapy. You want to keep it below 30 lux. And the reason and that's after the sun goes down. So after the sun goes down, keep your light exposure, your intensity below 30 lux. Because if it's above that, then you're going to alter your circadian rhythm. And there is research that shows that.
Yeah. Well, yes. And I interviewed Dr. Matt Walker for the podcast, and he was talking about the study, I'm sure you've heard of it, the one in the Rocky Mountains, where he sends a load of campers off with no technology at all. And they have to basically camp with just natural light for 3 weeks, I think they went. And they end up going to bed 2.5 hours earlier than they do in normal life, and sleeping for about 2.5 hours longer, which just goes to show the mad difference that artificial light has on our bodies and our lives.
Absolutely. Whenever I travel, I like to kind of experiment with myself. If I don't have to wake up for a meeting or whatever I'm traveling for, I just black everything out. And I don't have an alarm clock. I don't have I turn my phone over so there's no light in the room. And I just see when I wake up. And it's interesting because I will typically wake up whenever the sun is rising from the time zone that I came from. And that's, obviously if you stay there longer, then you start to reset and everything. And there's ways to help that speed up. But it's just interesting to see your circadian rhythm in motion and how it changes. It's quite dramatic, but pretty interesting.
And going back to your trip to Costa Rica, when you obviously weren't in a great way when you went, what exactly do you think was going on then? You went, all you really did was run around naked in the jungle with your wife. Sounds great. And what was going on in your body to heal you so dramatically like that?
Well, there's so many parameters, so many factors. So before I went, I was young. I graduated young, and I started working in a hospital system right out of school. This was a busy system. I ran a physical medicine facility in a hospital, and that was a lot. It was very stressful. I saw a lot of patients. I oversaw a lot of care. From there, I actually went and started my own practice, and then I went and I purchased a practice, and I hustled, and that was an insurance-based practice, and it was a whole ton of stress. That was my driving factor for my ill health at that point in time, was the amount of stress I was under. And I understood light, right? I used lasers in practice and all these things. I did not fully understand circadian biology at that point in time and how important it was. And so it was, number one, getting out from under the stress. Because I tell people all the time, if you have adrenal fatigue, or if you have any of these types of, things going on, sure, I can talk to you about supplementation, all that kind of stuff. But if you're still living on stress island, it's going to be hard to help you, because you still have that stress response firing. And what was going on is my elevated cortisol levels was desensitizing my receptors to my thyroid stimulating hormone. And that's what happens. And that's why you see the TSH start to rise. I inherently did not think I had cancer. But I think if I would have stayed in that environment, I believe it could have developed. Right. So once I got out from under that, right, I stopped soaking my body in cortisol and all these stress hormones all the time. My physiology reset. And then, the biggest component to resetting your physiology is going back to, what is my body designed to be set to? Well, my body is designed to be set to the rising and the setting of the sun. And that's why we decided on Costa Rica. We wanted somewhere near the equator. We wanted somewhere warm, where we could shed some clothes, where we could be, properly illuminated and exposed to light. And that's really what drove that process, was really just getting back to nature and understanding that our bodies are designed to be in that environment. We're not designed to be running this hustle bustle every day underneath a roof, underneath fluorescent lights in front of a screen. That is not how we were designed. So that's ultimately what was going on.
Yeah. And it was just so dramatic, the realignment of your circadian rhythm, and then the extra light that you were taking in, that had such a profound impact on your health.
Absolutely. Yeah. It really took maybe 2 weeks for me to really have the aha moment of, this was the right thing to do. The first thing I noticed was I'd always been really sensitive to light, right? So if you have that stress response, your pupils are big, right? So imagine, running away from a bear, your pupils are going to be big so you can scan the environment. So my pupils were huge, always had to wear sunglasses. And then all of a sudden, I remember I was outside, I was doing something, and I didn't have sunglasses on. And I was like, well, this is interesting. My eyes are not sensitive to light. And just, every day it was something different, a different feeling, a different, function of my body. It was just all coming into place. It was amazing. I need to go back.
So you didn't stay?
No, I got an opportunity to actually start consulting on autism spectrum disorders in the Middle East. And they hounded me. We were going to stay in Costa Rica for longer, but it was an amazing opportunity. And we finally said, you know what, let's go back. Let's move the family back to Texas. And I started doing this consulting in the Middle East. And from there, I was not going to practice anymore, just to be honest. But patients continued to seek me out. And so this practice that I'm running right now really just kind of organically grew. Just from that, I really did not have the intention to come back and start a practice. But now it's turned into multiple practices, right? So between myself and my business partner, Kyle Daigle, we've opened an office in Atlanta, and now we're opening an office in Dubai. And so, we've just had this really great organic growth, just because what we do works. It's all based on the circadian biology information we've been talking about, the use of laser and light therapy, functional neurology, just getting back to the principles of how is our brain and body supposed to develop, and then navigating a patient through that process.
And I get, it's obvious that sort of stress and the opposite of stress is a real focus for you. As you said, you can work with any client in any way, but if their stress response is stuck on, then they're just not going to be able to heal properly. That's something I've been looking at a lot with NLP, which is what I do and coach people on sort of the cross section between mindset and health. And I think it's actually, not only is it often overlooked, I think it's a really hard thing to persuade people, because it's not actually the glamorous stuff. It's not even a light device that you point at your brain. It's just, you just need to sort your head out a little bit, and you might start to allow your parasympathetic nervous system to kick in and heal. And that's a hard sell, actually.
It is. Yeah, I love NLP. I've studied it a little bit. I think it's fantastic. But, I always remember this one patient. It was early in my career, and she had Hashimoto's. So she had an autoimmune thyroid condition. And I walked her through food intolerance panels, chemical intolerance panels. We detoxed her. We did all the things. We did everything right. And her antibodies started over 1,000. So they were immeasurable. And through doing those things, right, supplementation and foods and all the things that I talked about, we got our antibodies down, I think, to like 300 to 400. So it was good. She was doing better, but I couldn't get her below that. And finally, I just had a conversation with her. I was like, what's going on? Like, what's going on in your life? Do you have any kind of chronic stressor? She goes, yeah, I cannot stand my husband. I hate him. And I was like, okay, let's talk about this.
Yeah.
Ultimately, I directed her, to go see a therapist. They started couples counseling and all these things. But that chronic stressor would not allow her physiology to work optimally, and she maintained that autoimmunity. Once they worked out the marital issues, her antibodies dropped again, and her thyroid function improved even more.
Wow.
So the stress physiology concept is huge. And if we think we can cover it up with a medication or even a supplement, then we're wrong. We have to address this, whether it's an LP, whether it's some other way. We have to address the stress physiology if we want to live optimally.
And even though the link between the body and the mind and health is so well established by science and research and popular culture, it's still a hard sell, isn't it? It's still hard to persuade people, hang on, this is actually, what's going on in your body is partly because of what's going on in your mind. That's a really difficult concept for people to take on. And it almost seems a bit of an insult sometimes, doesn't it? Well, you're telling me that all of these symptoms are just because of what I'm thinking about, which is not necessarily just because of what you're thinking about, but there's certainly often a link there.
It is. And it's sad, people, they have to have something so tangible. And so that's why, we try to use as much imagery. We try and use as much, visible, tangible things that we can. But you're right. It's hard. It's hard to imagine that just because of, a certain thought process, or because of even a certain daily habit, or, a mindset, situation that we have these limitations in our life, or we have these illnesses or symptoms in our life. But it's there. It's in the research. It's very well established. The mind and the body are connected. It's called embodiment. We cannot disconnect them. If we disconnect them, then we're dead, or we're dissociated and we have a psychological disorder. So it's very important to understand the very important interplay of mind and body and how that really brings forth life.
Yeah. Well, it's really good to talk to you. I can't wait to see more about the devices you're bringing out. They sound excellent. We had a little chat before the podcast started about your one book and your one tip for living with more energy. I'm looking forward to your book because you said you'd really like to go deep into the research at nighttime, and your Kindle's full of, quote, boring books. So I'm not sure I'd agree with that, but let's hear what you've got.
Well, okay. Yeah, I know. I've literally been sitting here going, man, what is like a very profound book that I've read that I could share with people? And I've like literally this entire time I've been thinking about it. One of my favorite books that I've read is called The Vicarious Brain. It's a brilliantly written book. It's not, I wouldn't say it's not one to read for fun. But if you want to learn a little bit more about what's going on in the brain and how it integrates even some of that mind-body component that we were talking about, It's a very, very good read. Like I said, it's a little dense, but it's an amazing read. So it's called The Vicarious Brain.
Great. That sounds excellent. I will check that out. I'm making a note of that. And then what about one tip then for living with more energy and vitality?
Yes. Optimize your light. Do it, man. Stop being in front of freaking screens and phones and all the things. They're dopamine stealers. They're getting you addicted. It's not good. Optimize your light. Get outside as the sun rises early in the morning. Get outside mid-afternoon. Get those good long far infrared waves, and then go outside as the sun is setting and reset that circadian biology. That is so huge and so foundational to life.
Lovely. Well, I've actually got my Portuguese lesson in 1 hour's time, and you've inspired me to go outside and meditate in the sort of late November, early December sunlight here in Portugal. So thank you for that inspiration. It's good to talk to you.
Yeah, same to you, man. I really appreciate it. And thanks for doing what you're doing, for helping so many people.
Yeah, likewise. Yeah. And where can people find out more about everything you do?
So I do have a website, just drbrandоncrawford.com. And that'll kind of keep everyone updated on whether it's my practice or my new lasers or whatever project I have going on.
Great. I know you're on various social media as well. Instagram?
Yes.
Yes. Yeah.
Instagram, that's probably my best. So at B Crawford DC. So B as in boy, my last name Crawford, and then DC. That would be how you find me on Instagram.
Excellent. I've just started following you. Great
Awesome.
to talk to you. Thank you so much, Brandon. Really enjoyed it. And I need to up my light game. I need a few more lights around the place.
Absolutely. Get you a tan, man. I appreciate it.
Great. All right. Take care.
All right. Bye.
A big thank you to Dr. Brandon Crawford, and thank you for listening as well. That is pretty much it for Zestology. I'm really pleased to partner with Bioptimizers again all through the year. I've been taking their magnesium a lot in January and refocusing so satisfyingly on my sleep. I just cannot believe how much, as soon as I start sorting out my diet, taking good quality supplements like Magnesium Breakthrough, going to bed on time, and not eating so much crap in the evenings, everything starts to change. My heart rate is literally 10 beats a minute lower overnight at the moment, according to my Oura ring and my Ultra Human ring. Yes, I'm wearing two of them. Than it was over Christmas, which is incredible, really. And I think Magnesium Breakthrough is a big part of that. I would be very sad if I had to go to bed without taking one of those to help me sleep. So you can head over to bioptimizers.com/Zestology. That is the link I use to get my Magnesium Breakthrough as well. Enter the code Zestology10 at checkout, and it is the only full spectrum magnesium supplement with 7 unique forms of magnesium. So it'll help you fall asleep, stay asleep, and wake up refreshed. It's really, really good stuff. Bioptimizers.com/Zestology. Enter the code Zestology10, and that discount code works all over the world. So if you're in the UK and you go to the bioptimizers.co.uk site, you can still use that code Zestology10 to get 10% off at checkout. Thanks for listening. Have a great week, and enjoy the good quality light outside if you've got some. If it's a bit murky, you'll have to get outside for a bit longer, or use one of those awesome devices that Dr. Brandon was talking about. But thanks for listening to Zestology, and I'm back next week with one of my all-time favourite Zestology guests. We've been planning this for ages. Dr. Shira Gill has been all over the TV recently. She's a decluttering expert. She's sort of like a Marie Kondo, but it's more about simplifying your life and sorting your life out by decluttering. So yeah, she's excellent, and she is on next week. So I will see you then.